Good morning, folks. Good morning, and welcome to this beloved community that we have here at Emerson. We're so happy to have you here. This and Christmas week, we got all kind of stuff going on this week, and I wanted to go over a little bit of that with you right now, if we have a minute. So, first thing, on Tuesday, Christmas Eve, 5:30, we will be singing carols and telling Christmas stories right here. You're all welcome to attend. And then on Christmas Day, which is Wednesday, we'll have a Christmas Vespers service, which will be very informal. Last year there were only 8 or 10 of us, and we told stories and sat outside. Not outside, out in the gathering place. And then after that, we will do something decidedly American, like go for Chinese food or something. So that's the schedule this week. And then you all can take the rest of the week off, as will I. As you know here, this is important. So, we are trying to orient the church's work on social action. And the Social Action Council is looking for your input. We'll be talking about this more in the coming year, but for right now, the Social Action Council is looking for your input. And is Ellen Norton around? She's the greeter, okay. So we have these cards for you. We have a very quick little survey we're asking you to do, just asking you where your personal priorities are. We're looking for big priorities. We're looking for things like end hunger, not work at such and such a soup kitchen. So we're still pretty on the very high level review of how we address and how we work on social action here. So it's difficult to remind you to go to this website down here. So we've created these cards. Please take a card, go home, and complete the survey. I think there's 6 questions. It's not going to take a long time. But we would appreciate the more input we have, the better we can orient the work of this congregation. And I'm happy to report, many of you were here, but yesterday we had a very successful winter solstice meeting here. There were somewhere around 35 of us gathered in Westwood Hall to celebrate the turning of the season, and we appreciate you coming, and we hope you got a lot out of that service. We have with us here today, as you might have noticed, Mim Frieder and Marilyn Rambo, and the vacant chair is Ed Frieder, who's somewhere. There you go, Ed. Thank you very much. They're going to play harp music. I've heard you're playing mostly rock and roll, like the Def Leppard. No Def Leppard. Okay. I might have misread that memo. Sorry. Lunch bunch today. We celebrate after services 2 ways. One, we go out into the gathering place, and we have coffee together. And then after that, if you're still hungry, we can go over to have lunch together. And today we're going to Mod Pizza. Feel free to join us. We would love to have you join us. And if you are still a little bit new around here, we invite you to get better connected with us. There are yellow cards in the pulpit that will put you on our mailing list, and we promise to send you no more than 2 emails per week. And now, with all of that said, I think that's it for the announcements. With all of that said, please enjoy our prelude performed by our instrumentalist as we formally begin our service. This piece, originally written as the Huron Indian language in 1640, is considered the first Canadian Christmas carol. Ooh, you're going deep there. Started by the Hurons in Ontario, this music is now sung throughout Canada and celebrated on Canadian stamps.
wanted to make sure they had due attention to their music and didn't want to leap up too soon here. I'm Jill Rose, and I am the worship associate today. So now we transition into our sacred time together, a time of reverence, a time of attention, a time of intention, and I invite you to join us in this time marked by the lighting of our chalice flame. I would like to invite Mary Cochran to come forward and light our chalice flame here in the sanctuary. And I invite those of you at home to light a candle where you are, to join in spirit. We mark this sacred time with words, important words, that bring us into a time of collective intention. So as we light our chalice flame here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you joining us from home to light a candle or chalice of your own. And then better known as Mother Teresa, she was an Albanian Indian Catholic nun and the founder of the Missionaries of Charity. She was born in 2010 and died in 1997 and was made a saint by the Roman Catholic Church in 2016. So please join me in reading these words of hers together as they appear on the screen. It is Christmas every time you let God love others through you. Emerson is a beloved community of faith, reason, and affection. We welcome all to grow in mind and spirit as we build a better world. We do this by gathering to seek, learn, and grow, and in the course of our work, to promote love among each other, our congregation, and the wider community here in Houston. Whether you're here in the sanctuary or joining us on Zoom or on Facebook, we welcome you. No matter where you are in your personal spiritual journey, we invite you to live, learn, love, and grow with us. As a covenantal community, we aspire to promote love, fellowship, and social justice, as well as support for your personal growth. So please join me in our welcoming words that are on the screen. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. And now we have our presentation of this week in Unitarian Universalist history with Richard Cummins.
Thank you, Jill. Good morning. Good morning. I've selected a few items from this wonderful book by Frank Schulman, This Day in UU History. On the 19th of December in 1820, the abolitionist Mary Ashton Rice Livermore was born in Boston. As a young woman, she worked as a governess on a plantation in Virginia where she witnessed the brutality of slavery. In 1845, she married Daniel Livermore, a Universalist minister, and became devoted to the principles of Universalism. Mary Livermore worked to raise money for medicine, food, and supplies for the wounded during the Civil War, and helped found the Home for Aged Women and the Hospital for Women and Children in Chicago when the war was over. She founded and served as president of the Illinois Women's Suffrage Association and formed the American Women's Suffrage Association with Julia Ward Howe and Lucy Stone. Livermore was also active in the temperance movement. She wrote an engaging autobiography, The Story of My Life, in 1897, and she died in 1905. On this day, December 22nd, in 1832, Ralph Waldo Emerson, our namesake, resigned his ministry at Second Church, Boston, ostensibly over a dispute about communion. But he felt he needed to either find another church or seek a new profession. That was this week in UU history.
If you're interested, we actually have Waldo Emerson's letter of resignation in the library. It's framed, hanging in the wall in the library. It's funny that the one actual artifact we have of the guy is the guy when he goes, you know what, I don't want to be a minister anymore. But it's a pretty cool thing to have. Each time we are gathered, friends, we hear the words from one of our 6 Unitarian sources, Universalist sources. Today we hear the words of Daniel Webster. Daniel Webster was born in New Hampshire, like all cool people are, in 1782, and he was a prominent orator and statesman in the turmoil leading up to the United States Civil War. He was also a Unitarian. Here are his words. And I picked these because they just sound like they could have been spoken today. Maybe with different language, but spoken today. He says, I apprehend no danger to our country from a foreign foe. Our destruction, should it come at all, will come from another quarter, from the inattention of the people to the concerns of their government. From their carelessness and negligence, I must confess that I do apprehend some danger. I feel that they may place too implicit a confidence in their public servants. And when he says public servants, he means elected officials. And fail properly to scrutinize their conduct, that in this way they may be made the dupes of designing men and become the instruments of their own undoing. Make them intelligent, and they will be vigilant. Give them the means of detecting the wrong, and they will apply the remedy. End of quote from Daniel Webster. And now, with our chalices lit and our hearts and our minds centered, we invite you to join your voices with ours in celebration by singing a hymn. You may stand if you're comfortable in doing so, or you may remain seated, but please help us by raising your voice and sing with us number 388, I Seek the Spirit of a Child. What? Oh yeah, 368. 338. That's the hymn. It's either 330, we don't know. 338, okay, there we go.
this is the time for our story. So now I'm in my more natural location here for a story. I bet a lot of you, maybe not all, have been busily engaged with some house decorating and cookies and making sure everything's tidied up if you have family coming and all of that kind of thing. So our story today is called Who is Coming to Our House by Joseph Slate and Ashley Wolf. And I promise you, this is a very short story, but it's all taking place, as you might imagine, in a barn. Who is coming to our house? Someone, says Mouse. Make room, says Pig. I will butt aside the rig, says the Goat. We must clean, says the Lamb. Dust the beams, says Ram. Who is coming to our house? Someone, says Mouse. Sweep the earth, says Chick. Stack the hay, says Goose, and quick. Spin new webs, says Spider. I will line the crib with eider, says the Duck. Who is coming to our house? Someone, says Mouse. Someone's coming from afar, says the Owl. I will nose the door ajar, says the Horse. But it's dark, says Cat. They will never come, says Rat. Yes, they'll come, says Mouse. Someone's coming to this house. I will lay an egg, says Hen. I will spread my tail for them, says the Peacock. Who is coming to our house? Mary and Joseph, whispers Mouse. Welcome, welcome to our house. May that spirit of welcome be with us. Each time we gather, we ask your help in fulfilling this church's mission. The success of this church and of the principles we support is made possible by the work of our members and friends and by your financial support. We honor that support by striving to live the mission of this place fully and wholeheartedly. Here at Emerson, this collection does not go to funding our work, which is funded through our pledges of financial support. This collection each week goes to fund the work of important partners of Emerson, who, in our opinion, live out our Unitarian Universalist values in our community and in the world beyond our community. The act of giving our financial support is both a transformative spiritual act and one way we live our values. 75% of today's offering will go to the December Share the Plate recipient. This month it is the Ministers' Benevolence Fund. The Ministers' Benevolence Fund was created by you, the members of the church, to help each other in times of financial need. It is administered by our minister and is always strictly confidential. The remaining 25% of the offering will go to Interfaith Ministries Meals on Wheels, as usual, which provides thousands of meals every day to Houston's homebound seniors. You can go to our webpage for online giving, put cash or check in our offering baskets, or mail a check to the church. During the offering music, children who want to attend their RE class may follow the teachers to the classroom. The offering music today is a Polish carol dating to the 13th century Catholic Church.
This is the time in our service where we normally have a meditation, but I'd like to confiscate the meditation for today, such as it is. And I'd like to tell you about two important things that happened this week at this church. Because we all see what we see, but we don't see what we can't see or don't see. So I just want to point them out to you to make sure that you see them. Is that okay? The first thing is, how about that play last Sunday? What a massive success that was. And you saw the people on the stage. There were that many people off the stage again doing work of putting the play on. The pews were full. It was a testament and a testimonial to the strength of this church and to all of you. But I want you to know what the best part of that play was. And let me tell you a story about how great that play was. At one point, they were down here doing something, and I was leaving, and I came and I poked my head in, and I was going to say something to them, but they were busy, and I would have to have yelled, and I don't know. It's just, but had I taken the time to interrupt them, what I would have said to them, and the reason I poked my head in the first place, was to ask them, do we all still like each other? Because we know that can be stressful. That can be stressful doing anything. Putting on a lunch, anything we do here together can be stressful. There's friction where we rub up against each other. So after the play, I asked everybody, not everybody, but I asked a bunch of people, how was it? Do we all still like each other? And they said, yes, we do. And I said, great, because remember, we are not here to perform plays. We're a church. So if we put on the best play in the world and hate each other afterwards, I don't want to put on any more plays. But we didn't do that. We strengthened bonds that had begun to be formed. We had made bonds better, and we made some new bonds amongst ourselves during the play. So the real community, the real work of beloved community is that hard work. Putting on the play is great, but doing it in love and doing it in a community, that's where the magic is. And I want to thank everybody from the play, but honestly, you could have sat out here crisscross applesauce and hummed music, and I would have been happy as long as you liked each other when we were done. So the fact that we got a good play out of it is just that much better. Thank you very much to all of you. And then a second thing, I know while we're talking about hard work, because that play was hard work, I've heard. I know a lot of you are doing hard work that we can't see, especially during this time of Christmas time. Last week, I had the absolute privilege of sitting with you to discuss some of that work that you're doing. I found myself on one day, on the same day, trying to convince 3 of you who did not know that you each came down to my up to my office. You did not come together. You don't even know each other was there. But I found myself trying to convince all 3 people that sometimes good enough is really good enough. Don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. This is an affliction and a burden laid upon us by our culture. This is an affliction laid upon us by our prioritization of gain and growth, and whatever you want to call it, over actual welfare. It is embedded in each of your souls, and it's embedded in my souls, and it needs to get out. And it's work, because we don't even know it's there sometimes. And I sat there at the end of that day, having had the privilege of walking with 3 of you as you try to unravel that insidious messaging, and I was absolutely inspired by the work you were doing. So to the 3 of you, thank you very much. And to the rest of you who are also doing the work that we can't see, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you and how much I appreciate the work that you're doing out where we can see it and the work that you're doing back where we can't see it. So can I get an amen for those 2 celebrations this week? Yes, they're little things that you can't see, but that's the important stuff. And I'm way off script, so I have no idea what to do next. What do we do next? Sing a song? Oh, Spirit of Life. Let's meditate. Let's meditate for a minute, and then we will sing Spirit of Life. Well, let's just sing Spirit of Life. Let's just sing Spirit of Meditation seems a little phony at this point.
The words for our second reading today come from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson, founder of the Atlantic magazine, the one still in print today, and the namesake of this very church, has been called America's intellectual. To be a star, you must shine your own light. Follow your path and don't worry about the darkness, for that is when the stars shine brightest. Always do what you are afraid to do. And now we have some special music from our musicians. This piece is from an ancient legend inspired by a 19th century story of a miracle in which a date palm tree bows to Mary, convincing Joseph of the miracle birth. Later versions were used in nativity plays in which Joseph is angry and then apologizes to Mary after the tree bows to her.
give me a hand with these? Thank you. I don't know how we're going to do this. Or break it, or both. Whoop, whoop, just go right over here. Yeah, that's good. Now this second one is a lot bigger. I'm falling apart. Here, hold the. This is hard work. You got the back? Okay. Hey, while we're talking about hard work, how many of you saw the article posted by the University of Texas about Artem? Where are you going? You think I asked you out here just to do this? The article was entitled, "A Star is Born." How do you say a star is born in Russian? Zvezda Rizeles. Let's give that a whirl, everybody. Zvezda Rizeles. We will post the article on our, he's being modest. It just goes on and on and on about how wonderful a year he's had and all of that. And I know how it can be embarrassing when people talk nice about you. I'm kidding. I really don't know. Okay. Thank you, Artem, for all you do for us. We appreciate it. A star is born. Okay, and now back to our regularly scheduled sermon. Okay, so I am reading a book, which I know a lot of you are going to think is funny in and of itself, but I do love this book. It is a book, it is the autobiography of U.S. Marine Major Greg Pappy Boyington, who many of you might have some idea of because he was fictionalized in a television program called Baba Black Sheep back in the 70s. Does that ring a bell with anybody? It was Robert Conrad. Yeah, okay. Here is a photo of the actual Pappy Boyington, who is nowhere near as good looking as Robert Conrad. And this is an autobiography. So I want to read, I'm reading this section of the book, and I'm like, boing, this just jumped out at me. And I want to read this section. It comes from chapter 10, which is about a third of a way through the book. And in this part of the story, while Pappy is still a post-Marine Corps member of the 1st American Volunteer Group of the Republic of China Air Force, things have changed. This group had been nicknamed the Flying Tigers. I don't know if that rings a bell with any of you. The group was sent to China in the early 1940s, before the United States official involvement in either Europe or the Pacific, and they were sent with equipment to help the Chinese in their war against the invading Japanese. In this part of the story, Pappy is talking about finding out that the Chinese he had been sent there to help defeat the Japanese were constantly infighting with feudal lords more interested in taking out the feudal lord next door than defeating the Japanese. Many of these feudal lords, he laments, were setting themselves up for success no matter who won the war, the Japanese or the Chinese. In this lament, he breaks off the narrative of that story and he makes the following comment, and it's the comment that really caught me. Now, just to give you some time frames, this happened in the early 40s, and the book was written in 1977. He says, "Many times in recent years, I have wished that I had majored in history rather than engineering, for I could have had a great deal more out of life, and maybe I would not have been expected so much out of people, myself included. And if I had been a history major, I would have been satisfied that I would have been involved in making a part of history, only in a minor way, and that grade school history books for children's protections present everybody as a noble character except the bad, bad enemy. The actual people in these books are talking about had every rotten habit and foul idea known to man because they were human beings also. History has its Napoleons, its Cardinal Richelieus, and its Milady de Winters, which is all references to the Alexandre Dumas. I have long since discovered that there is no such thing as bad people. There are just two kinds of people, because people are people. There are those who know, and there are those who don't know. And I don't want you to think that I have any intention of shoving onto a few the entire blame for China becoming communistic instead of something else. Either way, even though I didn't make a fortune like some of the others and my main motives were not greed and power, I honestly feel that I am guilty along with them, even though my main crime was ignorance, which is a byproduct of emotional immaturity. I deserve to be included in the China gang. My only hope is that we didn't louse up the future generations too greatly so that they might have a chance in the years to come. End of quote from Pappy Boyington. Boy, does that ever sum up my feelings about history. So, you know, we do the History Minute here with Richard Cummins, right? Why do we do that? Because I know about myself that I will rarely, if ever, preach about history. And I know that a lot of you love history. So I make sure that we get some history in the service every week, even though I may not mention it or talk about it. That's why that's there. I actually love history. I think that most history is better than fiction if it's done right. But most often, history is not done right. I also struggle with using it as a basis for a sermon. I don't think that this is a history classroom, and I'm not a history professor. Sermons aren't history lessons. My two big complaints about our use of history are two things. First, we use it to bolster our own narrative. We use it as confirmation bias. Do you know what confirmation bias is? I think something, someone else thinks it, therefore it must be true, right? That's confirmation bias. And my second problem that I have with history is we often force it to fit where it may not actually fit. And we'll get into that in a minute. As Boyington says, history books for children's protections present everybody as a noble character, except for the bad enemy. People in our history books are sterilized. They are spit shine. They are antiseptic. And they even have just a spray of cologne on them sometimes. But we as children fall in love with the G-rated version that we hear when we're 8 years old of these very R-rated people. Take Thomas Jefferson. 6 children with a woman he legally owned. He fled Richmond when it was under attack by the enemy. He was the governor of Virginia, and he ran. And he died with, in today's money, over $1 million in debt. There's a couple others here, too. Did you take the outline? I gave you two. Okay, so you can't see these. But these are wonderful posters. This one here, and thanks to Bill and Lori Hammonds, right? So you framed these, right? You framed the small one. Okay. So this is the original poster. These were made by the UU Church of Akron, Ohio. And these are 100 Unitarian Universalists who made a difference. Version 1, made about 2001. And then, after a little more thought, version 2, made in 2018. And why the change, right? So on the back of those sheets, it tells you who was removed and why. And that pretty much tracks with my objections to history. So the first objection that people had was, well, a lot of these people kind of, like calling them a Unitarian or a Universalist was a bit of a stretch. There's a couple that were a bit of a stretch. I don't remember which ones they are. Who were they? There was a whole bunch of them on that sheet. So what did we do? We found people who we really loved. Jefferson is a great example. Jefferson is often called a Unitarian because at one point he said, in the next century, all American would be Unitarian. First, nope. And second, and he was an Episcopalian. That's where he went to church. He didn't go to church that often because he was a Mason, right? So we stretched him into being a Unitarian, even though he probably wasn't. And then, if you look at this sheet here, it is missing something pretty important. All 100 of these people are white. Every last one of them. So what we did, what the Church of Akron did, was they redid it. And they really looked back in history. And they took maybe Egbert Brown, who was a Unitarian minister in Chicago, who we were just really, as a denomination, awful to. And he kept going. And his little church is still up and running in Chicago, despite everything the institution did to squish it. And there's a couple others on here that they changed, right? So I found it interesting how we bent history to make it the way we wanted it to be. And then over here, we fixed it. Margot Adler was added. One of my favorite things is John Adams, often renowned as the grumpiest president, is a Unitarian. You know that, right? And his son, obviously, was a Unitarian. So was Millard Fillmore, right? Who signed a law making it illegal to harbor runaway slaves, a Unitarian. So we have, they're here, right? So I wonder sometimes, I look at history, and I look at the way we revere the G-rated versions of these R-rated people, right? P.T. Barnum is another one that's on here. Did you know that he was a Universalist and gave a ton of money to the Universalist Church and had freak shows where he basically held people with no other way of making a living as indentured servants. And let's not even mention John C. Calhoun. Did you know that John C. Calhoun founded All Souls, Washington, D.C.? Do you know who John C. Calhoun is? John C. Calhoun was a senator and a vice president of the United States and a slave owner. And I'm not talking just a little slave owner. I'm talking a lot of slaves in South Carolina in a town that was named after his son-in-law called Clemson. Have you heard of that? Yes. For some reason, he didn't want the town named Calhoun, so he named it after his son-in-law, Clemson. Maybe it's because of the internet, but we are finding out more and more about these folks. Thomas Jefferson District in the Unitarian Universalist Association was renamed in 2011. It's just an example of how we've moved on. And yet, I am reminded of my time with you this week. Good enough is often as good as we're going to get. Boynton said, I have long since discovered that there's no such thing as a bad person. And I would add, if there are no bad people, then there are probably no good people either. Religion, especially Christianity, the brand of Christianity that likes to make Santa Claus and God kind of merge together, where Santa Claus is the judge, he makes a list and checks it twice, and kind of so does God make a list and check it twice. Or maybe God is the judge and God looks like Santa Claus or Santa looks like, I don't know how that works. But they do sort of merge together a little bit. You and me, all of us, are either good or bad in that book. We are naughty or we are nice, despite all of us being somewhere in between. Someone keeps score and passes judgment on you. But in our church, our first principle, the old style, first principle says just the opposite. We are all born with worth and dignity that cannot be taken away. I don't know what's going on with that thing. Hang on. Even the worst, you want to change to this thing? Even the worst among us. I'll start that over. We are all born with worth and dignity that cannot be taken away from us, even the worst among us. This is one of the greatest sins of this cell phone generation, this age of atomization. We are all judge and jury with no accountability, even when we are judging ourselves. Some folks manage to give away a lot of their self-worth. That is true. We have the classic evil icons that come up every time we talk about evil. Some are notoriously harder to pin down, which pile they're in, naughty or nice. I'm going to give you 3 examples of them right now. 4, let's make it 4. Bill Cosby, right? I hear you. Single-handedly changed the perception of black people on television. And he was an evil, sadistic, pathetic rapist. We have thrown away the single-handedly changed the perception of black people on television, haven't we? We don't pay attention to that anymore, but he still did that. Susan B. Anthony. I feel all the women tensing up. Hang on. Susan B. Anthony fought for women's suffrage and was an overt racist. She did not think black women should be allowed to vote. She did not think they were allowed to be citizens. Thomas Jefferson, we already talked about, of questionable character, and wrote down the bones of this nation. General Sherman, credited with almost single-handedly ending the Civil War, and murdered hundreds of thousands of people on his march through the South. So what's the secret then? If everyone is in between good and bad, if good enough sometimes just has to be and actually is good enough, where do we find inspiration? We're supposed to be able to look at these posters and say, these are the people that we should live up to be. If we can't even find that in Thomas Jefferson, well, God, where are we going to find it? Here's my suggestion to you. Look around this room right now. Next time you're near a mirror, look at the person in the mirror and realize that you are someone's inspiration. Inspiration, my friends, is in the eye of the beholder. Woody Allen said 80% of success is showing up. They say that Albert Einstein said 90% of success is showing up and 10% is wearing matching socks. I don't know if that's true, but I think it's one of those what I call inverse truths. I don't know if 80% of success is showing up, but I'm pretty sure if you don't show up, you're guaranteed to lose. Which means that every single time we show up to run a play, to run a lunch, to sit in services, to do what we do here in this church, to finance the church, to work on the documents of the church, to cut the checks, to make sure that the church does what it has to do. Every time we show up, we run the risk of inspiring each other. Take that risk. Look around. Look at each other. Look at people you came here with. Look at people you don't even know. Everyone in this room inspires someone. Forget about the damn posters. Those are good people. But these are great people. Amen. Now, join us in singing our second hymn. In the spirit of Mim and Marilyn and Ed playing these 2,000-year-old songs, we are going to sing the first verse of the second hymn in Latin, because that's how we roll here at Emerson. So we're going to sing the first verse in Latin, and we're going to sing the chorus in Latin. You ready? You ready? Yeah, you ready? No? You may stand or you may stay seated, but join the emperors and in singing us in Latin. Thank you. Very nice work. We have now arrived at our part of the service where we must extinguish our chalice flame. I invite Mary to come forward and extinguish our flame for us. This flame has served as a reminder that our time together this morning is sacred, a time set apart. In the words of Brian Kiley, the chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each one of you. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet. We are so grateful for all of you coming here today. We are especially grateful for those of you who joined us on YouTube. Hello, everybody on YouTube. Thank you for coming, and Merry Christmas. After the postlude, we will be ending our live stream for you. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again real soon. And my friends, may we, in the course of our week, be more and more aware of the communities of which we are a part. May we be more and more aware of our individual part in those communities. May we be more and more aware of how those communities co-create our journey with us, and may we be more and more aware of how we co-create their journeys with them. Amen.